Hello, I'm Dr. Dean Burnett, the neuroscience guy, again, and this is another installment of This Is Your Brain on Lockdown, where I do short videos where I try to explain certain aspects of the brain and what's happening to it during this ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Now, anyone who watched previous videos in this series will perhaps wonder why there's been a gap of many months since the last one I did. Well, I can promise there are good reasons for that. One is, you may notice this video looks somewhat different to previous ones, and that's because I've only now managed to get hold of a modern camera to record them on. Given our video calls are the new normal, webcams have been in very short supply, and still are, but I managed to obtain one. For previous videos, I was using a 15-year-old handycam that I found in my attic. See? In case you were doubting that. Not that it didn't work, it's just that converting the recordings to a format that's usable in 2020 and sorting out the terrible audio was a process that took several hours each time. And it became a serious chore to do, even for just 5-minute videos. Of course, that wouldn't have been such a big deal if it weren't for the fact that while I was doing the previous videos in the early days of the pandemic and lockdown way back in March, my otherwise healthy 58-year-old father contracted COVID-19, and in late April he died from it. And I had to deal with that, while cut off from my family and friends thanks to the same virus which just robbed me of a parent. It turns out that making cheerful little information videos about how the pandemic affects people's mental state is really hard to do when it's just applied a hammer blow to your own. Not that I'm necessarily over it yet, as they say. Each day is a new struggle, as you know, but we do what we can. But I will say it has provided me a new impetus to wonder about how people are reacting and behaving to this grim situation. And one other thing lots of people are currently wondering about is, why do certain people refuse to wear masks, or at least strongly object to them? On paper, it's very weird. All the reliable evidence shows that face masks are a cheap, simple, easy and effective way to limit the spread of coronavirus. You don't need to take or inject anything. It's just essentially a strip of material covering the lower half of your face. So why are people so opposed to wearing one? I'm not including those who can't wear one due to other pre-existing health factors. That's a separate issue. There are also those who don't wear one for political or ideological reasons, and that's something else that muddies the waters. If you don't like masks because someone you agree with and support says you shouldn't, then that's not great, but it's not really about the masks per se. In fairness, it's not exactly fun wearing a mask. They can be somewhat uncomfortable, inconvenient, obstructive, or if you're a glasses wearer like me and they keep fogging up, masks are actively annoying. But still, all that combined doesn't outweigh the preventing death from COVID aspect of masks. So presumably there must be something deeper, something psychological that makes people resistant to them. It could be that humans depend on faces a lot for communication. Look, a face, you know what they look like. We have dedicated regions of the brain responsible for detecting and reading faces, as our expressions and facial movements are a big part of how we interact. Masks block a fair chunk of that, and some people may not like that. Resisted masks because of the maybe a largely subconscious negative impact they have on day-to-day communication with others. There's also the fact that wearing masks or other face coverings has been, for many years now, associated with negative things in the wider world. For instance, things like surgical masks or dental or other medical masks, or even like hazmat stuff or crime scene investigation, all extremely helpful, but invoke images of invasive operations, surgery, poor health, teeth removal, crimes, violence, and so on. And there's also, how many times have you seen a mugger or a bank robber on TV and they're wearing a face mask? So we associate them with crime and violence. And then there's this. Of course, there's the Western media campaigns against burqas and similar religious facial coverings, which have been regularly been demonized in the press. And this has been easy to do, perhaps, because we're already somewhat suspicious of other people's faces being covered, like they are with masks. Having said all that, part of the resistance to mask wearing could be simple reactance. Reactance is an unpleasant motivational arousal reaction that occurs in response to things that threaten or eliminate specific behaviours and freedoms. It occurs when a person feels that someone or something is taking away their choices or limiting the range of alternatives and options they have. I mean, have you ever known someone who only wants something because they can't have it? Happens a lot with children. There's a child, for reference. But you may be guilty of it yourself. We probably all are. This is reactance. It simply boils down to the fact that the human brain doesn't react well to being told no, to having our freedoms and options curtailed by an external force. And so it may be with masks. It could simply be a matter of some people, rather than being given the option, being told they have to wear masks and find this unacceptable, or at least objectionable. It is a surprisingly common phenomenon. It helps to explain things like the buttons on pedestrian crossings at busy junctions and roads. Those things. You've probably seen them, probably even touched one. Many people have noticed that most of these don't actually do anything. The lights are clearly on a scheduled timer, so pushing the button is meaningless, except it's not. Even though pushing the button has no effect on when the lights change and when you can cross the road, it changes the experience. Rather than pedestrians being told they can't cross the road, it means they feel like they're choosing to cross the road and are thus more likely to wait for the allocated opportunity, because it seems like their decision, not an option that was denied to them. Would people be more likely to take risks and run into traffic if we were just told to wait rather than feel like it was our choice? I don't have the numbers, but it wouldn't surprise me at all, because humans are just like that. This factors into another potential issue, the locus of control. That's a controller. It's hard to find pictures of an abstract concept. Your locus of control is the degree to which you feel in control of your own life and what happens to you. If you have an internal locus of control, it means you feel like you're in charge of what happens to you. If you have an external locus of control, it means you feel like you're more beholden to events and the world around you. Neither is necessarily better or worse than the other. An internal locus of control may mean you feel more confident and driven to achieve things and obtain things, but you're also more stressed because you're responsible for everything. And external locus of control is sort of the opposite. You're at the mercy of events, which is stressful, but it's a less pressured existence for the same reason, and things aren't your fault. It's all internalized, it's all how you see things. But an internal locus of control is more common in individualistic, capitalistic cultures like those in Europe, UK, US and all that, where the emphasis is on the rights of the individual. We are raised to believe that we can do whatever we want to, wherever we put our minds to, the customer's always right, that we should aspire to great things, all of that. So if something infringes on our precious rights, it goes against the grain for many. Perhaps in normal times, something as innocuous as mask wearing wouldn't be as big a deal. But this is a pandemic, and we've lost many of the options we've grown used to. We can't so easily go on holiday, go shopping, go to the pub, see friends and family, send our kids to school, and so on. Any sense of control over our lives has taken a big hit already, so perhaps having to wear a mask when doing the few things we can do is a step too far for some. There's also the possibility that some people still do not see COVID-19 as a genuine threat, so find mask wearing a pointless exercise. It's still only affected a minority of the population at this stage, and given the fractured, polarised media we have, there are plenty who, despite everything, are maintaining that COVID-19 is still no big deal. We tend to respond better to restrictions on our behaviour and freedoms when the benefit to us is tangible. We have speed limits on our roads, for instance, and these technically restrict our options to go faster, but if we don't obey them, we get arrested or crash and die. So by and large, we tolerate speed limits, within reason. Wearing a mask protects you and others from COVID-19, but many people don't believe that's the case, so don't feel the need to wear them. It would be fair to say that most of the controversy around wearing masks stems from the United States. Now, I've not seen the numbers for this either, but I bet a great many people who refuse to wear masks for protection against coronavirus, a genuine threat that exists, are the same people championing gun ownership or use and citing risks of home invasion, gang violence and hostile government oppression, things which are, theoretically at least, much less likely than contracting COVID-19 in the current environment. Indeed, many reports have stated that gun sales have soared during the lockdown. This may seem contradictory, condemning masks while embracing guns, but it makes sense from a psychological perspective. Nobody's forcing anyone to own a gun, at least not officially, and as dangerous as they are, looked at a certain way, guns technically increase your options. You can shoot someone now, and therefore you enhance your sense of control, not diminish it. They give you more authority, more power over others, whereas masks do not. So there are a number of factors, which many of which I haven't even mentioned here, that could lead to people not being willing to wear masks when venturing outdoors during a pandemic. It's not automatically a selfishness or a callous disregard for the safety of others. A lot of the time, though, it is that. And all this I've just said is an explanation, not so much as an excuse for such attitudes. But any way you explain it, masks do work, and refusing to wear one when you've no valid health reason for not doing so can't be justified in the face of all the data which shows how much they can help in suppressing this pandemic. You can read more stuff like this in my books. these ones. But for now, please wear your masks if you can. It may seem like COVID-19 is more a mild annoyance than a life-threatening danger, but trust me, that is wrong. It has already cost me one parent. Please don't inadvertently inflict my pain on anyone else.